The International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea, known as SOLAS, is organized into major chapters covering the essential safety areas of international shipping. These chapters include general provisions, construction, subdivision and stability, machinery and electrical installations, fire protection, fire detection and fire extinction, life-saving appliances and arrangements, radio communications, safety of navigation, carriage of cargoes, carriage of dangerous goods, nuclear ships, the ISM code and safe operation of ships, high-speed craft, special measures to enhance maritime safety, special measures to enhance maritime security and the ISPS code, additional safety measures for bulk carriers, verification of compliance, the Polar Code, and ships carrying industrial personnel. SOLAS Chapter 1 establishes the general legal basis of the International Convention for the Safety of Life at Sea. It explains how SOLAS is applied, how ships are surveyed and certificated, how port state control is carried out, and how casualties are investigated. Its main purpose is to ensure that ships engaged on international voyages are properly surveyed, certificated, and maintained in a safe condition. Chapter 1 creates the basic safety framework that connects application, definitions, surveys, certification, maintenance, inspection, and casualty investigation. Chapter 1 is divided into three main parts. Part A covers application, definitions, exceptions, and exemptions. Part B covers surveys and certificates, and Part C covers casualties. SOLAS generally applies to passenger ships and cargo ships of 500 gross tonnage and above, engaged on international voyages, unless otherwise stated. Warships, cargo ships below 500 GT, fishing vessels, pleasure yachts not engaged in trade, and ships of primitive build are normally excluded. Part A also defines important terms, including administration, meaning the government of the state whose flag the ship is entitled to fly. Exemptions or equivalent arrangements may be accepted only in limited cases when the same level of safety is maintained. Part B of Chapter 1 sets out the statutory survey system. Passenger ships are normally surveyed every year, while cargo ships are surveyed according to the certificate and equipment involved. Surveys may include initial, renewal, annual, intermediate, periodical, and additional surveys. They cover structure, machinery, electrical installations, fire protection, life-saving appliances, radio equipment, navigation safety, and other SOLAS requirements. After satisfactory surveys, the Flag Administration or an authorized recognized organization issues or endorses certificates such as Passenger Ship Safety Certificate, Cargo Ship Safety Construction Certificate, Cargo Ship Safety Equipment Certificate, Cargo Ship Safety Radio Certificate, or Cargo Ship Safety Certificate. Certificates must be valid, endorsed, and kept on board. Ships and equipment must remain compliant after surveys, and serious defects, accidents, or safety changes must be reported. Port State Control may inspect foreign ships and apply detention if serious deficiencies are found. SOLAS Chapter 2 is one of the most important parts of SOLAS. In practice, it is divided into Chapter 2.1 and Chapter 2.2. Its purpose is to ensure that ships are designed, built, equipped, and maintained so that the hull, stability, machinery, electrical systems, and fire safety arrangements provide an acceptable level of safety during normal operation and emergencies. This chapter combines structural safety, watertight integrity, machinery reliability, electrical continuity, and fire protection into one major technical safety framework. SOLAS Chapter 2.1 covers construction, subdivision, and stability, machinery and electrical installations, Passenger ships must be subdivided into watertight compartments so that after assumed hull damage, the ship can remain afloat and stable. The required degree of subdivision depends on ship type, size, and service, with the highest standards applying to passenger ships. Chapter 2.1 also includes requirements for watertight integrity, bilge pumping, damage stability, openings in watertight divisions and arrangements that help the ship survive flooding or structural damage. Chapter 2.1 also regulates steering gear, main and auxiliary machinery, boilers, pressure systems, remote controls, electrical power, emergency sources of power, emergency lighting, and protection against electrical hazards. Essential machinery and electrical services must remain available under emergency conditions. The chapter ensures that propulsion, steering, power generation, control systems, and emergency services are reliable enough to support the safe operation of the ship. For ships using low flashpoint fuels, SOLAS 2.1 is also linked with the mandatory IGF code. SOLAS Chapter 2 deals with fire protection, fire detection, and fire extinction. It is based on fire safety objectives such as preventing fire and explosion, reducing danger to life from smoke and toxic gases, containing fire in the space of origin, protecting escape routes, maintaining firefighting capability, and allowing safe evacuation or abandonment if required. Requirements include structural fire protection, fire-resistant divisions, limited use of combustible materials, control of smoke spread, fire detection and alarm systems, fixed and portable firefighting appliances, fire pumps, hydrants, means of escape, fire control plans, crew training, drills, maintenance and readiness of fire safety systems. Special rules apply to machinery spaces, cargo spaces, tankers, ro-ro spaces, vehicle spaces, accommodation areas, and control stations. Recent amendments strengthen fire safety in vehicle, special category and ro-ro spaces and restrict certain harmful extinguishing media. SOLAS Chapter 3 sets out mandatory requirements for life-saving appliances and arrangements on ships. Its purpose is to ensure that every person on board can be alerted, mustered, embarked, evacuated, rescued, and supported in survival craft during an emergency. The chapter applies according to ship type, size, service, and voyage, especially to passenger ships and cargo ships engaged on international voyages. Chapter 3 converts emergency preparedness into practical protection of life at sea through approved equipment, clear procedures, trained crew, and continuous maintenance. Chapter 3 is closely linked with the International Life-Saving Appliance Code, known as the LSA Code. Under SOLAS Regulation 3/34, life-saving appliances and arrangements must comply with the applicable technical standards of the LSA Code. These standards cover lifeboats, life rafts, rescue boats, life jackets, life buoys, immersion suits, anti-exposure suits, thermal protective aids, pyrotechnics, line-throwing appliances, launching appliances, marine evacuation systems, general alarm systems, and public address systems. Part A of Chapter 3 includes application, exemptions, definitions, approval, evaluation, testing, and production testing. Life-saving equipment must be approved by the administration or a recognized organization and maintained ready for immediate use. Part B of Chapter 3 contains operational and carriage requirements. Ships must have proper communication and alarm arrangements, clear muster lists, emergency instructions, operating instructions, assigned duties, trained personnel in charge of survival craft, suitable muster and embarkation stations, safe launching and recovery arrangements, and adequate stowage of survival craft, rescue boats, and marine evacuation systems. The chapter also requires emergency training, abandoned ship drills, rescue boat drills, Regular inspections, maintenance, servicing, and records. Passenger ships have additional requirements because of the number and vulnerability of persons on board, including survival craft capacity, passenger information, row-row passenger ship arrangements, and master decision support systems. Cargo ships have specific requirements for survival craft, rescue boats, personal life-saving appliances, embarkation and launching arrangements. Alternative designs may be accepted only when equivalent safety is approved by the administration under IMO procedures. SOLAS Chapter 4 establishes radio communication requirements under the Global Maritime Distress and Safety System, or GMDSS. Its purpose is to ensure that ships can send and receive distress alerts, urgency and safety messages, maritime safety information, search and rescue communications, and general operational messages throughout the voyage. The chapter applies to passenger ships and cargo ships of 300 gross tonnage and above on international voyages, unless a specific exemption applies. The required equipment depends on the ship's operating sea area. GMDSS sea areas determine the equipment required. Sea Area A1 is covered by VHF coast stations. Sea Area A2 is covered by MF coast stations outside A1. Sea Area A3 is covered by a recognized mobile satellite service carried on board outside A1 and A2. Sea Area A4 covers remaining areas, mainly polar waters. Ships normally carry VHF radio with digital selective calling, equipment for receiving maritime safety information and search and rescue information, and additional MF, MF-HF, or recognized mobile satellite service equipment where required. EPIRBs, SARTs, or AIS-SATs, and two-way VHF radio telephone apparatus are essential parts of distress and survival craft communications. Chapter 4 requires continuous watchkeeping on appropriate distress and safety frequencies, including DSC watch where applicable. Radio equipment must be properly located, protected, and supplied with power so that it remains available in an emergency. A reserve source of energy, batteries, and charging arrangements must support distress communications if the main power supply fails. SOLAS Chapter 4 focuses on functional capability, ship-to-shore and shore-to-ship distress alerting, ship-to-ship communication, search and rescue coordination, on-scene communication, locating signals, MSI reception, bridge-to-bridge safety communication, and general radio communications. Radio installations must be type-approved, surveyed, maintained, and recorded in the Safety Radio or Passenger Ship Safety Certificate. Availability may be ensured through duplication, shore-based maintenance, at-sea electronic maintenance, or a combination. The 2024 GMDSS Modernization Amendments introduced more technology-neutral wording, recognized modern satellite services, moved some survival craft communication requirements from Chapter 3 to Chapter 4, and removed obsolete requirements such as mandatory HF NBDP for distress communications. SOLAS Chapter V deals with safety of navigation and contains operational requirements intended to prevent collisions, groundings, navigational accidents, and loss of life at sea. Unlike many other SOLAS chapters, Chapter V generally applies to all ships on all voyages, unless a specific regulation states otherwise. Its requirements are closely connected with COLREG, STCW, the ISM Code, GMDSS, IMSAR guidance, hydrographic standards, and IMO performance standards for navigational equipment. It creates a complete navigation safety framework by combining government services, shipboard equipment, competent watchkeeping, voyage planning, emergency response, and the master's professional judgment. Chapter V places duties on contracting governments as well as ships. Governments must provide or arrange essential safety services, such as navigational warnings, meteorological services and warnings, ice patrol services where applicable, search and rescue services, hydrographic services, ship's routing systems, ship reporting systems, vessel traffic services, and aids to navigation. These services support safe passage planning and conduct of the voyage. Ships must carry approved navigational equipment according to size, type, and voyage, including magnetic and gyro compasses, nautical charts and publications, ECDIS, where required, radar, ARPA or automatic tracking aids, GNSS or other position-fixing systems, echo sounder, speed and distance measuring equipment, rudder angle and rate of turn indicators, AIS, VDR or SVDR, BNWAS, and other bridge equipment. Charts and publications must be adequate, up-to-date, and suitable for the intended voyage. A key requirement of Chapter 5 is voyage planning. Before proceeding to sea, the master must ensure that the intended voyage is planned from berth to berth, using appropriate charts, publications, routing information, weather data, navigational warnings, tides, currents, traffic separation schemes, reporting systems, under-keel clearance, dangers to navigation, and contingency measures. During the voyage, the plan must be monitored and amended when necessary. Chapter 5 also requires proper lookout, effective bridge watchkeeping, steering gear tests and drills, recording of navigational activities and incidents, and reporting dangers to navigation. The master has overriding authority to take decisions necessary for safety of life, the ship, cargo, and the marine environment. The chapter also covers pilot transfer arrangements, life-saving signals, distress situations, obligations to assist persons in distress at sea, misuse of distress signals, and operational limitations for passenger ships. SOLAS Chapter 6 sets out safety requirements for the carriage of cargoes, except liquids and gases carried in bulk. Its main purpose is to prevent accidents caused by incorrect cargo information, unsafe loading, poor stowage, cargo shifting, loss of stability, structural overload, fire, toxic gases, oxygen depletion, liquefaction, and other cargo-related hazards. The chapter requires cargo operations to be managed with accurate information, safe procedures, proper stowage, securing and supervision so that the ship, crew, cargo, and marine environment are not endangered. The shipper must give the master or the master's representative accurate cargo information before loading. This information must include cargo description, gross mass, special properties, hazards, and any precautions required for safe loading, stowage, securing, and carriage. For packed containers, the verified gross mass, or VGM, must be provided before loading, and a container without VGM must not be loaded on board. All cargo must be loaded, stowed, trimmed, and secured so that it does not endanger the ship, crew, cargo, or marine environment. Cargo units, vehicles, and containers must be secured according to the approved Cargo Securing Manual and relevant IMO guidance, such as the CSS code. The master has authority to reject cargo when safety requirements are not satisfied. For solid bulk cargoes, SOLAS Chapter 6 works together with the mandatory IMSBC code. This code gives detailed requirements for cargo classification, declaration, loading, trimming, ventilation, segregation, testing, and emergency precautions. Special care is required for cargoes that may liquefy, heat, emit toxic or flammable gases, corrode the ship, deplete oxygen, or overload the structure. Moisture content, transportable moisture limit, hold condition. Bilge protection and cargo distribution must be checked carefully. Bulk carriers must follow safe loading and unloading procedures, including an agreed cargo plan, clear ship-shore communication, hull stress monitoring, and prevention of uneven loading. The carriage of grain in bulk is regulated by the International Grain Code because grain may shift at sea and reduce stability. Ships carrying grain must meet stability criteria and carry grain loading documentation. In practice, Chapter 6 must be applied together with the IMS-BC Code, International Grain Code, CSS Code, Cargo Securing Manual, BLU Code, ISM Code, MARPOL, and applicable flag, port state, and class requirements. SOLAS Chapter 7 establishes international safety requirements for carrying dangerous goods by sea. Its aim is to protect the ship, crew, cargo, port facilities, and marine environment by ensuring that dangerous cargoes are correctly classified, documented, packed, marked, labeled, placarded, stowed, segregated, and carried under suitable shipboard conditions. Chapter 7 links dangerous goods operations with several mandatory IMO codes and requires strict control from acceptance before loading through carriage and emergency preparedness. Part A of Chapter 7 covers dangerous goods in packaged form and requires compliance with the International Maritime Dangerous Goods Code, or IMDG Code. The IMDG Code provides UN numbers, proper shipping names, and detailed rules for packing, portable tanks, marking, labeling, documentation, stowage, segregation, emergency response, and training. Marine pollutants must also be considered, together with MARPOL Annex 3. Part A1 covers dangerous goods in solid form and bulk and is applied with the IMS-BC Code. This is important for cargoes that may create fire, explosion, toxic, corrosive, self-heating, oxygen-depleting, liquefaction, or stability risks. Correct cargo information, testing, moisture control where required, trimming, ventilation, and safe loading and discharge procedures are essential. Part B of Chapter 7 applies to ships carrying dangerous liquid chemicals in bulk. Chemical tankers must comply with the IBC Code and carry the appropriate certificate of fitness. The code covers cargo containment, ship construction, piping, ventilation, fire protection, personnel protection, and pollution prevention according to the hazards of each product. Part C applies to ships carrying liquefied gases in bulk. Gas carriers must comply with the IGC Code. Regulating cargo tanks, pressure and temperature control, gas detection, emergency shutdown systems, fire safety, and crew protection. Part D contains special requirements for ships carrying packaged irradiated nuclear fuel, plutonium, and high-level radioactive wastes under the INF Code. Such ships need special certification, structural and fire protection standards, emergency arrangements, and radiological safety measures. The shipper must provide accurate declarations, and the master and operator must ensure that dangerous goods are accepted, loaded, stowed, segregated, and carried according to the applicable code, certificates, document of compliance where required, and flag or port state requirements. A dangerous goods manifest or stowage plan should be available, and trained crew must know emergency procedures. Non-compliance may lead to detention, cargo rejection, pollution, fire, explosion, injury, or loss of life. SOLAS Chapter 8 sets international safety requirements for nuclear-powered merchant ships. Its main purpose is to ensure that nuclear propulsion does not create unreasonable radiation, nuclear or operational hazards for crew, passengers, port personnel, the public, waterways, food or water resources, or the marine environment. Nuclear ships must comply not only with Chapter 8, but also with all other applicable SOLAS chapters, unless Chapter 8 provides specific additional requirements. A nuclear ship cannot be exempted from compliance with SOLAS requirements. Chapter 8 is closely connected with the IMO Code of Safety for Nuclear Merchant Ships, adopted by IMO Resolution A491/12. This code gives detailed standards for design, construction, operation, inspection, and emergency arrangements of nuclear merchant ships. The reactor installation must be approved by the Flag Administration before operation and must be suitable for shipboard service under normal and exceptional conditions, including ship motion, vibration, fire, flooding, collision, grounding, loss of power, and other emergencies. Radiation safety is central. The ship must be designed and operated to prevent uncontrolled release of radioactive material and keep radiation exposure as low as reasonably practicable. Suitable shielding, containment, radiation monitoring, radioactive waste control, trained personnel, and emergency procedures must be provided. A safety assessment must be prepared and approved by the administration. It must show that the nuclear power plant and the ship as a whole can operate without unreasonable radiation or other hazards, and it must be kept up to date. A detailed operating manual must also be approved, carried on board, and maintained current, giving operating personnel clear instructions for safe operation of the nuclear power plant. Nuclear ships are subject to special surveys and certification. After satisfactory survey, the ship must carry either a nuclear passenger ship safety certificate or a nuclear cargo ship safety certificate. These certificates confirm compliance with Chapter 8 and conformity with the approved safety assessment. Nuclear ships are also subject to special port state control before entering ports and while in port. Any casualty or incident likely to cause radiation hazards must be promptly reported by the master and operator to the Flag Administration and affected coastal or port states. SOLAS Chapter 9 makes the International Safety Management Code mandatory for applicable ships and companies. Its purpose is to ensure safe operation of ships, prevention of human injury or loss of life, protection of the marine environment, and avoidance of damage to property. Chapter 9 links shipboard safety with shore-based company responsibility and requires a structured safety management system, known as SMS. It applies mainly to passenger ships, including passenger high-speed craft, and to cargo ships and mobile offshore drilling units of 500 gross tonnage and above engaged on international voyages. Under the ISM code, the company means the owner or any organization or person, such as a manager or bareboat charterer, that has assumed responsibility for operation of the ship and agreed to take over all duties imposed by the code. Each company must establish, implement, and maintain an SMS. This system must include a safety and environmental protection policy, defined authority, and communication between ship and shore, procedures for safe ship operation and pollution prevention, emergency preparedness, reporting and analysis of non-conformities, accidents, and hazardous situations, internal audits, management reviews, and document control. A key requirement is the designated person ashore, or DPA, who provides a direct link between company and ship and has access to the highest level of management. The company must ensure that the master is qualified, familiar with the SMS, and given overriding authority and responsibility for safety and pollution prevention decisions. Compliance with Chapter 9 is verified by certification and audits. The company must hold a Document of Compliance, or DOC, issued by the administration or a recognized organization after verification that the company's SMS meets the ISM code. Each ship must hold a Safety Management Certificate, or SMC, confirming that the ship and its company operate in accordance with the approved SMS. Both certificates are subject to initial, periodical, intermediate, and renewal audits, and ships may be inspected by port state control. Chapter 9 and the ISM code do not replace SOLAS, MARPOL, STCW, the Load Line Convention, or COLREG. Instead, they require the company and ship to manage compliance through safety culture, risk awareness, procedures, competent personnel, maintenance, emergency readiness, and continual improvement. SOLAS Chapter X establishes international safety requirements for high-speed craft engaged on international voyages. Its purpose is to ensure that craft capable of operating at high speeds are designed, constructed, equipped, operated, and maintained with a safety level equivalent to conventional ships. Chapter X makes the International Code of Safety for High-Speed Craft mandatory. Depending on the construction date, either the 1994 HSC Code or the 2000 HSC Code applies. The HSC Code applies mainly to passenger craft and cargo craft on international voyages. Passenger high-speed craft must not proceed more than 4 hours at operational speed from a place of refuge when fully loaded, while cargo high-speed craft of 500 gross tonnage and above must not proceed more than 8 hours from a place of refuge. All passengers must have seats, and enclosed sleeping berths for passengers are not permitted. The code covers buoyancy, stability, structure, machinery, electrical installations, fire safety, life-saving appliances, radio communications, navigation equipment, steering systems, control stations, and evacuation arrangements. Because high-speed craft may have lightweight structures and different risks, the code uses a performance-based approach supported by risk analysis, operational limitations, and strict certification. A high-speed craft must hold a valid high-speed craft safety certificate and a permit to operate high-speed craft. The permit to operate defines essential conditions such as permitted routes, maximum distance from refuge, weather limitations, passenger capacity, crew requirements, communication arrangements, and emergency procedures. The craft must operate only within these approved limits. Operational safety is central. Crew members must be properly trained and familiar with the craft's systems, emergency procedures, evacuation arrangements, and passenger control duties. Maintenance, drills, records, and operational procedures must be controlled through the company's safety management system in accordance with the ISM code where applicable. Chapter X and the HSC code provide a comprehensive framework for safe design, certification, and operation of high-speed craft. SOLAS Chapter 11.1 contains special safety measures intended to strengthen flag state control, ship traceability, survey standards, port state control, and accident investigation. It should not be confused with Chapter 11.2, which deals with maritime security and the ISPS code. Chapter 11.1 requires administrations to authorize and supervise recognized organizations, such as classification societies, when they carry out statutory surveys, inspections, and certification on behalf of the flag state. These organizations must comply with IMO standards, so delegated statutory work is performed consistently and reliably. Chapter XIN-1 makes enhanced surveys mandatory for bulk carriers and oil tankers in accordance with the ESP code. These surveys focus on structural condition, corrosion, thickness measurement, cargo areas, ballast tanks, and high-risk parts of the ship. The chapter also requires an IMO ship identification number for applicable ships. This permanent number must appear on statutory certificates and be permanently marked on the hull or superstructure, with internal marking also required. The number improves identification throughout the ship's life, even if name, flag, owner, or class changes. IMO company and registered owner identification numbers also support transparency and control of management and ownership. Chapter XIN-1 requires a continuous synopsis record, or CSR, to be carried on board. The CSR is the official historical record of the ship, including flag, name, owner, registered owner, company, classification society, and ISM-related information. It must remain updated and on board as part of the ship's traceable history. Chapter XI-1 gives Port State Control Officers authority to check operational requirements when there are clear grounds to believe that the master or crew are not familiar with essential shipboard procedures. This may include emergency, safety, pollution prevention, and operational drills or records. Marine casualty and incident investigations are also addressed. Administrations must conduct safety investigations in accordance with the IMO Casualty Investigation Code, especially for very serious marine casualties, with the purpose of preventing recurrence rather than assigning blame. SOLAS XI-1/7 also requires applicable ships to carry suitable portable atmosphere testing instruments for enclosed space entry. At minimum, these instruments must measure oxygen, flammable gases or vapors, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon monoxide, and suitable calibration arrangements must be provided. Overall, Chapter XI-1 improves maritime safety through oversight, identification, structural survey control, operational compliance, accident investigation, and enclosed space safety. SOLAS Chapter 11-2 establishes the international framework for maritime security and gives mandatory force to the International Ship and Port Facility Security Code, known as the ISPS Code. It entered into force on the 1st July 2004 to detect, deter, and respond to security threats affecting ships, port facilities, ship-port interface, and ship-to-ship activities. The chapter applies to passenger ships, including high-speed passenger craft, cargo ships, including high-speed craft of 500 GT and above, mobile offshore drilling units, and port facilities serving such ships on international voyages. It does not replace SOLAS safety rules, the ISM code, STCW, or MARPOL, but adds a risk-based security system to protect people, ships, cargo, and ports. The ISPS code has mandatory Part A and recommendatory Part B. Part A contains binding requirements for contracting governments, administrations, port facilities, companies, and ships. Part B gives implementation guidance. The system is based on security assessments, approved security plans, defined duties, training, drills, records, communication, and vigilance. Contracting governments must set security levels, designate competent authorities, approve port facility security assessments and plans, communicate security information, and apply control and compliance measures. Companies and ships must comply with SOLAS XI-2 and the ISPS code, taking Part B guidance into account. Each company must appoint a company security officer, and each ship must have a ship security officer, ship security assessment, approved ship security plan, security records, and where applicable, a valid International Ship Security Certificate or interim certificate. Security Level 1 is normal minimum protection. Security Level 2 requires additional measures due to heightened risk. Security Level 3 applies when a security incident is probable or imminent and requires specific protective actions. Typical ISPS measures include access control, gangway watch, ID checks, restricted area control, monitoring deck areas and surrounding waters, control of cargo and ship stores, baggage control and coordination with port facilities. SOLAS 11-2 also requires a ship security alert system, protection of security-sensitive information, and use of a declaration of security when required by the administration, contracting government, or assessed risk. The master retains overriding authority for ship safety and security and must not be constrained from taking necessary decisions. Non-compliance may result in inspection, delay, detention, restriction of operations, expulsion from port, or refusal of port entry. Effective implementation depends not only on certificates, but also on crew awareness, training, records, cooperation with port facilities, and prompt reporting of security concerns. SOLAS Chapter 11 sets additional safety requirements for bulk carriers to reduce the risk of structural failure, flooding, loss of stability, and rapid sinking. It was introduced after serious bulk carrier casualties and works together with SOLAS Chapter 5, the IMSBC Code, the BLU Code, the ESP Code, the Load Line Convention, class rules, and relevant IMO standards. The chapter applies to bulk carriers according to their length, age, construction date, structural arrangement, and the density of cargo carried. Many key requirements apply to bulk carriers of 150 meters in length and above, especially when carrying high-density solid bulk cargoes. A main objective of Chapter 12 is to ensure sufficient structural strength and damage survivability. Certain bulk carriers must be capable of withstanding flooding of any one cargo hold. For older single-side skin bulk carriers, special attention is given to the strength of the transverse watertight bulkhead between the foremost cargo holds and the double bottom of the foremost cargo hold. Bulk carriers must be surveyed, inspected, and maintained properly. Cargo holds, hatch covers, side shell structures, transverse bulkheads, and double bottoms are critical areas. Where applicable, surveys are carried out under the Enhanced Survey Program because corrosion, cracks, or deformation may seriously affect safety. Chapter 12 also requires clear loading and operational information on board. The approved loading manual, booklet, and loading instrument must show cargo restrictions, hold loading limits, structural limits, and operational conditions. If restrictions apply to high-density cargoes, the ship may need to display the permanent triangle mark on the side shell. Before loading, the shipper must declare the density and characteristics of the cargo. This allows the master and officers to check local strength, longitudinal strength, shear forces, bending moments, hold loading and stability during loading, unloading, and the voyage. Water ingress detection is also required. Bulk carriers must have water level detectors in cargo holds, forward ballast tanks, and certain forward dry or void spaces, with audible and visual alarms on the bridge. Pumping arrangements for forward spaces must be operable from a safe and accessible enclosed location. Certain older single-side skin bulk carriers carrying high-density cargoes may not sail with empty or insufficiently loaded holds unless they meet required structural and damage survivability standards. Chapter 12 improves bulk carrier safety through stronger structures, safer loading, cargo density control, surveys, alarms, pumping arrangements, and operational restrictions. SOLAS Chapter 13 establishes the mandatory system for verifying how contracting governments implement and enforce their obligations under the SOLAS Convention. Unlike many SOLAS chapters that mainly set technical requirements for ships, Chapter 13 focuses on the performance of states. Its purpose is to ensure that maritime safety rules are not only written into national law, but are effectively applied, monitored, and improved. Chapter 13 is closely linked with the IMO Member State Audit Scheme and the IMO Instruments Implementation Code, known as the III Code. It makes contracting governments subject to periodic audits by the International Maritime Organization. These audits assess whether a state properly fulfills its responsibilities as a flag state, port state, and coastal state. As a flag state, a government must ensure that ships flying its flag comply with SOLAS through legislation, surveys, certification, inspection, casualty investigation, and enforcement. If statutory duties are delegated to recognized organizations, the administration must still maintain effective control and oversight. As a port state, The government must have procedures for port state control and action against unsafe ships. As a coastal state, it must support safety services such as navigation, communication, search and rescue, and other obligations required by IMO instruments. The audit examines national maritime legislation, administrative procedures, qualified personnel, delegation of authority, survey and certification systems, enforcement, casualty reporting, and corrective action. Chapter 13 does not replace shipboard surveys, classification surveys, ISM audits, ISPS verifications, or PSC inspections. Instead, it verifies whether the government framework behind them is effective. It supports safer ships, better administrations, reliable certification, accident prevention, and stronger protection of life at sea. SOLAS Chapter 14 makes the safety provisions of the IMO Polar Code mandatory for ships operating in Arctic and Antarctic waters. It entered into force on 1 January 2017 and applies in addition to general SOLAS requirements. Its purpose is to address special hazards of polar operations, including ice, low temperatures, icing, poor visibility, high-latitude navigation, limited hydrographic data, reduced communication coverage, remoteness from search and rescue facilities, and the vulnerability of polar ecosystems. Chapter 14 requires ships operating in polar waters to comply with the introduction and Part 1A of the International Code for Ships Operating in Polar Waters. The Polar Code also contains environmental provisions made mandatory through MARPOL, especially for prevention of pollution by oil, noxious liquid substances, sewage, and garbage. Part 1A and Part 2A are mandatory, while Parts 1B and 2B provide recommendatory guidance. A ship subject to the Polar Code must be assessed according to intended area, season, temperature range, ice conditions, and operational limitations. Based on this assessment, the ship is issued a Polar Ship Certificate and categorized as Category A, B, or C. Category A ships are designed for operation in at least medium first-year ice, which may include old ice inclusions. Category B ships are designed for operation in at least thin first-year ice. Category C ships are intended for open water or less severe ice conditions. Ships subject to the Polar Code must carry a Polar Water Operational Manual. This manual gives the master, officers, and crew clear information about the ship's capabilities, limitations, procedures, and risk control measures during polar operations. It supports safe decision-making for voyage planning, navigation, machinery operation, emergency response, and environmental protection. The manual ensures that polar operations are not treated as ordinary voyages, because the vessel, crew, equipment, and procedures must be specifically evaluated against polar hazards. The Polar Code sets goal-based and functional requirements covering ship structure, stability and subdivision, watertight and weathertight integrity, machinery, fire safety, life-saving appliances, navigation, communications, voyage planning, operational safety, manning and training. Masters, chief mates, and officers in charge of a navigational watch must have appropriate training and certification under the STCW Convention and STCW Code when serving on ships operating in polar waters. SOLAS Chapter 14 ensures that a ship is not considered suitable for polar service simply because it complies with ordinary SOLAS rules. The key objective is to protect life, maintain safe navigation, prevent accidents, improve emergency preparedness, and reduce pollution risks in one of the world's most demanding marine environments. SOLAS Chapter 15 Safety Measures for Ships Carrying Industrial Personnel entered into force on the 1st of July 2024. It was introduced to create a clear international safety framework for ships carrying industrial personnel, especially for offshore and energy sector operations where normal SOLAS cargo ship requirements do not fully address the risks of personnel transfer at sea. Industrial personnel are persons transported or accommodated on board for offshore industrial activities carried out on other ships or offshore facilities. These activities include construction, maintenance, decommissioning, operation or servicing of offshore installations connected with renewable energy, oil and gas, aquaculture, ocean mining, and similar sectors. Industrial personnel are not treated as passengers, but when numbers are calculated, industrial personnel, special personnel, and passengers are considered together, and passengers must not exceed 12. Chapter 15 generally applies to cargo ships and high-speed cargo craft of 500 gross tonnage and above, constructed on or after 1 July 2024, carrying more than 12 industrial personnel. Existing ships previously authorized to carry more than 12 industrial personnel must comply with relevant transitional IP code requirements by the applicable survey date. Ships not previously authorized must comply with Chapter 15 and the IP code before carrying more than 12 industrial personnel. The chapter makes the International Code of Safety for Ships Carrying Industrial Personnel, known as the IP code, mandatory. Applicable ships must be certified as cargo ships or high-speed cargo craft under relevant SOLAS provisions, comply with the IP code, and carry a valid industrial personnel safety certificate issued after survey by the administration or a recognized organization. The IP code covers the main additional risks related to industrial personnel. It requires safe personnel transfer arrangements, suitable position keeping, updated records of the number and identity of persons on board, adequate subdivision and stability, machinery and electrical redundancy, fire safety, sufficient life-saving appliances, emergency communication, safe recovery of persons and controls for dangerous goods. Industrial personnel must be medically fit, at least 16 years old, able to communicate with the crew, properly trained in personal survival, fire safety, and personal safety, and familiarized with ship-specific emergency procedures and transfer equipment. Overall, SOLAS Chapter 15 and the IP Code aim to ensure that ships carrying offshore workers provide a safety level appropriate to the increased number of persons and the special risks of offshore transfer operations.